your trash could turn into something beautiful. Not just recycled, but reborn. In this video, I'll show you how discarded bottles, broken pieces, and forgotten plastics found a new purpose, right here in my tiny garden. Ideas you can build. Stories you can feel. This is Modhouse DIY, where small hands and big dreams create something real. You'll find timestamps below, skip around, or take it slow. And if you have questions, the comment section is always open. This isn't a polished studio. This is just me. Maybe to you, I'm just another face on a screen. But behind this content, there's a real story, and a real family. This isn't just a video. It's a piece of my heart. Every like, every comment, every subscribe, it truly matters. When you hit that button, you're not just helping a channel grow, you're helping a small dream stay alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. There's something quietly joyful about color lining a garden wall, not in the form of paint or tile, but through the revival of something once tossed aside. In this backyard corner, plastic bottles, bold and unapologetically reused, find new life as planters, breathing brightness into an aged wooden fence. Each bottle is trimmed, filled with soil, and carefully spaced to create an ombre gradient. Fiery reds kiss the base, moving upward through pumpkin orange and lemon yellow, until they fade into the soft blue of spring skies. The sunlight makes them shine like stained glass on a Sunday morning, but without perfection. Some paint chips, some edges fray, yet that's what makes it feel real. Look closer, and you'll find life spilling from every cut. Pansies blink in purple and gold. Marigolds stretch upward, proud and warm. In the herb section, basil and mint lean lazily out of their makeshift cradles, their leaves fresh and bright. The breeze carries a soft, sharp green scent that tells you this project is more than just pretty. It's functional. It's living. It's yours to build. This isn't a craft born in a studio with perfect tools, it's made with what you already have. Bottles that once held soda now hold seedlings. A fence once bare now speaks in color. And a garden that felt too small now becomes a canvas for expression, one bottle at a time. Try this on your own wall, even just with 3 colors. Let each layer mean something. The bottom for grounding, the middle for growth, and the top for hope. Let your plants spill over. Let them grow wild. Let them remind you that transformation is always possible, even for the most ordinary things. Somewhere between a sunny fence and a child's quiet hand, a strawberry begins to ripen, not in a pristine garden, but in a tower made of old plastic bottles, stacked with purpose and painted with care. This isn't a high-tech hydroponic marvel. It's something more intimate. Recycled bottles, once tossed into bins and forgotten, are now reborn as vertical gardens, bursting with the scent of summer and the promise of small harvests. Each bottle, trimmed with side openings, cradles a strawberry plant that spills gently outward. Leaves catch the sun. Runners dangle. And the fruit? It glows with a sweetness that comes from attention, not perfection. Red, green, and white bottles form patriotic towers in one yard. Pastel hues create softer stacks in another. The arrangement doesn't need to be uniform, it needs to feel loved. Whether painted bright cherry or calming mint, the tower becomes part of the landscape, a functional sculpture where bees visit, children snack, and nothing goes to waste. A simple wood sign says, "Berry Spot, hand-painted," as if to invite passers-by into a secret ritual. Pick one. Taste. Smile. Somewhere nearby, a watering can waits patiently, straw mulch cradles the base, and the soil stays just moist enough to keep everything growing. This is the kind of DIY project that lives in memory, easy to build, easier to enjoy, and filled with color you can eat. You don't need space, just intention. You don't need money, just patience. Start with 5 bottles. Let strawberries be your guide. And one day soon, when the fruit blushes red against plastic green, you'll understand why simple things often feel the most alive. Some gardens whisper in greens and browns. But some, like this one, sing in full color. Under the quiet beams of a wooden pergola, a soft breeze nudges a curtain of bottles, each one rescued, repainted, and reborn. They hang like music notes, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, swaying ever so gently with each passing gust. Afternoon light passes through the translucent plastic, casting stained glass shadows on the stone below. It feels like walking beneath a rainbow made not by nature, but by hand. Look closer, and you'll find life taking root within each bottle. Tiny trailing lobelias spill softly. Moss clings to the base. In some, sprigs of thyme stretch toward sunlight like they know their time has just begun. There are imperfections here, chipped edges, smudged paint, uneven heights, but that's part of the charm. It's not perfect. It's personal. This isn't a project built for Instagram. It's built for you. For the quiet joy of sipping tea beneath something you made with your own hands. For the simple act of turning trash into art, not with expensive tools, but with jute string, empty bottles, and a little belief that beauty often begins in the discarded. And it works. Not just as decor, but as a soft divider between one part of the yard and another. A frame for your patio. A backdrop for your thoughts. A place where color lives in motion and every bottle tells its own quiet story. Let this inspire you. Start with one string. Add one bottle. Let it move. Let it shine. Then sit beneath it, and feel what happens when a simple DIY becomes a shelter of color and care. In the smallest corners of a garden, where space runs thin but love still grows wide, bottle edges bloom with purpose. Here, ordinary soda bottles, short, rounded, and once forgotten, find a second life along the garden's edge. Trimmed neatly and painted in cheerful pastels, they line up like candy-colored soldiers guarding a bed of marigolds and mint. Pink, lavender, and mint green form soft curves against fresh grass, tracing the path like a quiet border between wild and tended. Some of these bottle pots cradle leafy greens, tiny romaine hearts, pak choi, even kale, grown from seed with care. Others are bursting with pansies or creeping thyme that spill gently over the sides. The bottles are imperfectly cut, their surfaces textured by brush strokes, chipped edges, and fingerprints, each one proof that this was made by hand, not by machine. There's a joy in how they sit so low, close to the soil, visible only when you walk the path slowly and notice. In one corner, a garden gnome peeks out from behind a fence post. In another, the faded soles of a child's rubber boots pass by, leaving tiny marks on the stone walk. It feels personal. It feels lived in. This kind of garden idea doesn't need tutorials or big budgets. It just needs noticing of what's around you, what you'd normally throw away, and what can still hold life. One bottle becomes a border. 10 bottles become a frame. 100 could turn your entire yard into a playful edge of life and light. In a tiny space, every detail matters. And sometimes, it's the smallest borders that carry the biggest heart. Sometimes, the smallest garden doesn't live in soil, it grows on walls. Here, old soda bottles are given a second life, turned sideways, painted in tones that soothe and spark, sage green, brick red, sky blue. They sit firmly across the slats of a wooden pallet or a rescue door, becoming unexpected planters for herbs, lettuces, and blooms. Their surfaces are imperfect, hand-brushed, a little chipped, a little faded, but that only adds to their charm. Because nothing about this setup is mass-produced. Every line, every bottle, every planting hole was made with hands that care. In one corner, thyme spills out like a green waterfall. In another, nasturtiums blaze in orange and gold, their petals opening toward the sun. There's a bottle labeled Zinnia Love, raindrops still clinging to its side. Against brick, fence, or pale painted wood, the bottles pop, not in flashy tones, but in a way that feels deeply human. This is a vertical garden for those who don't have acres. For the balcony gardener. For the back alley dreamer. For anyone who looks at an empty wall and sees possibility instead of limits. And it works. These bottle planters hold just enough soil for fresh basil, parsley, chilies, even a mix of leaf lettuces for daily harvests. With a bit of drainage and light, the entire setup becomes a living painting. A reminder that growing your own doesn't have to start from scratch. It can start from scraps. So next time you see a bottle lying by the curb or tucked under a bench, think about what it could become. Maybe not trash. Maybe not just a planter. Maybe the start of a wall that feeds both your eyes and your table. some gardens don't begin with wealth. They begin with wonder, an old soda bottle, a splash of white paint, and a quiet morning filled with possibility. In the soft embrace of spring, where the soil is still cool from dawn and the air hums gently with bees, something magical takes shape. Daisy-shaped planters made entirely from plastic trash, now reborn with charm and purpose. At first glance, these aren't just upcycled containers. They're characters, each one a small, open-mouthed bloom, crafted from bottles once discarded. Their white petals curl outward imperfectly, hand-cut and gently uneven, proof of their handmade story. The yellow centers beam like tiny suns, painted bright and bold, catching every glint of morning light. One holds a calendula, its orange flower leaning slightly to one side as if to listen to the bees. Another cradles succulents, low and quiet and full of texture. And then there are the ones dressed in pansies, bursting with color like cheerful guests at a spring picnic. There's something deeply comforting about the way these planters sit in the garden bed, neatly spaced, not too formal, but intentional. Around them, wooden border pegs keep the earth held gently in place. Above them, the sky offers soft sunshine, casting shadows through the petals that dance slightly in the breeze. This isn't a manicured showpiece. It's a backyard storybook, playful, human, and easy to love. If you have a few empty bottles, a bit of paint, and a patch of earth, this could be your beginning too. Don't worry about the precision. Let your scissors guide you in curves. Let your brush stroke wobble. Let the flowers you plant speak the rest. Because sometimes, the most delightful gardens are the ones that bloom from what was once overlooked. On a quiet patio tucked between city walls, a simple idea comes to life, one that's not only beautiful, but useful. Old juice bottles, once destined for the bin, have been given a second chance as vessels of life. With a bit of cutting and paint, they now cradle lush herbs that sway gently in the breeze, offering both fragrance and function to even the smallest corners of a home. The first glimpse draws your eyes to a corner ledge, where bottle planters painted in earthy hues, olive, clay, sand, sit like handcrafted treasures. Basil stretches wide, rosemary grows like green fire, and oregano softens the air. Each planter is filled with rich, dark soil, still damp from a morning watering. On a wooden cutting board nearby, a few freshly snipped sprigs await, ready to flavor a meal or steep in a calming tea. One step closer, and you'll notice the details. A mint plant flourishes in a clear bottle with its base painted white, dew gathering on the inside from the early heat of the sun. A cup of tea steams beside it, hinting at quiet rituals and the satisfaction of growing something you can use with your own hands. The setting is humble, a sun hat set aside, lavender blooming in the background, but the feeling is rich, peace, creativity, intention. Then there's the pastel rainbow in a crate, 8 neatly painted bottles lined in soft greens, lavenders, and sky blues. Each holds a different herb: thyme, sage, chives, cilantro. Chalkboard labels swing lightly on twine, and a pair of well-worn gloves rest nearby. It feels like a project you take on with a friend or a child on a Saturday morning, full of color and quiet joy. These DIY herb gardens remind us that sustainability doesn't have to be grand to be meaningful. With a few recycled bottles, a bit of paint, and some soil, anyone, no matter how small their space, can create a garden that grows nourishment, beauty, and pride. There's something quietly magical about transforming trash into wonder, especially when the result is a smile-inducing scene that brightens a quiet patio nook. In the first corner, 3 charming characters greet the day: a cheerful orange cat with sleepy crescent eyes, a calm turquoise owl perched like a guardian of the flowers, and a robot with a shy smile gently holding a tiny succulent. Their forms, once empty plastic bottles, now radiate joy and warmth. Resting on a weathered wooden crate between galvanized planters and tiny garden tools, they invite conversation. They're simple, but not simplistic, each curve painted with care, each eye placed with intention. For DIY lovers working with limited space, this kind of display proves that personality doesn't require square footage, just a touch of imagination and paint. Elsewhere, on a tiny table tucked beneath ivy and blooms, a red ladybug sculpture becomes the star. With black polka dots, delicate wire antennae, and big playful googly eyes made from caps, she sits near a marigold, bright, bold, and inviting a curious child's hand to reach out. The moment feels fleeting, candid, like a memory being made in real time. This kind of DIY piece isn't just decorative, it's interactive, bringing little ones into the garden world with curiosity and laughter. And then, stepping back, we see a full wall transformed into a storybook set: butterflies with pastel wings, frogs that seem mid-ribbit, and grinning insect friends made entirely of bottles, twine, and scraps of foam. They're displayed proudly on pallet shelves beside blooming daisies and pots of lavender, basking in warm sunlight. This isn't a sculpture garden in a gallery. It's a handmade celebration of life and reuse, crafted not with perfection in mind, but with joy. And that's the heart of it. You don't need expensive tools or endless time. Just a few plastic bottles, a splash of paint, and a willingness to see the beauty hiding in the recycling bin. There's something sacred about the way a fence becomes a canvas, not for perfection, but for quiet purpose. In this backyard, every dented bottle and faded brushstroke carries a whisper of intention. What once held cola or water now holds green life, ivy trailing gently like lazy cursive, lavender stretching upwards in purple flicks, and creeping Jenny falling like a spill of light. The old paint, cracked and peeled, reveals the past rather than hiding it. And that's the charm, it feels real. You can almost hear the soft crunch of mulch beneath your shoes, smell the bark chips warmed by afternoon sun. Each planter is a reclaimed story. Fastened with twine or neatly tucked onto screws, these upcycled bottles breathe a second life. Their mismatched colors, dusty blue, olive drab, rusted red, form an accidental palette that looks better than any polished design. There's a rhythm to it. Not perfect, but human. The chalkboard tucked in the gravel says, "Wild things grow here." It's not just a garden motto, it's a gentle permission. Permission to reuse. To plant wildly. To not match. To create beauty from what's been thrown out. If you've got a fence and a few empty bottles, you already have the bones of this project. A drill, some paint you forgot in the shed, and a little soil. You don't need a big budget, just a warm day, some old tools, and a willingness to experiment. Let time and weather do the rest. This isn't a showcase garden. It's a space that grows with you. That rusted watering can on the mulch? It doesn't just water, it remembers. So give your fence a second glance. What could it hold, if you let it? Sometimes, it's the quietest corners of the garden that whisper the loudest. In this gentle stretch of green, someone has tucked the sea into the soil, not with salt water or tide, but with painted bottles and flowering breath. Their hands must have known the ocean well, or at least longed for it, because every edge of this bottle bed curves like the soft curl of a wave, each upcycled piece colored in foamy whites and blues that shift like shallows into depth. The bottles are pressed halfway into the earth, holding their stance like tiny sentinels of shoreline memory. Some glisten in aquamarine, others glow pearl white like a shell kissed by light. There is no gloss here, no cinematic dazzle, just the kind of beauty that belongs to real afternoons and sun-warmed plastic in your palm. Inside the curve, a dreamy mixture of alyssum, lobelia, and low lavender hums to life. The white alyssum drifts like sea foam on dark mulch, while the lavender tilts toward the sky as though sniffing for salt in the breeze. Lobelia spills gently at the center like tide pools caught in still bloom. The bottle edging doesn't just hold the plants, it frames them, cradles them, like hands cupped around a fragile moment. Here and there, a shell, tucked in by instinct, not plan, reminds you this bed isn't just a garden trick. It's a memory of the sea, planted where the waves can't reach. And maybe that's the heart of DIY, not perfection, but poetry in scraps. You don't need perfect tools, just paint, old bottles, and a moment of patience. If you're lucky, it won't just be a flower bed when you're done. It'll be a little piece of coastline, blooming quietly in your own backyard. In the quiet hush of a shaded backyard, where the air smells faintly of earth and damp leaves, a garden border hums with humble beauty. It isn't stone, nor timber, nor the costly trim you'd find in catalogs. It's a clever illusion born from used plastic bottles, hand-painted and lovingly transformed into bamboo-style garden edging. Each bottle stands tall like a stalk of green hope. The tones range from jade to forest, brushed softly with weathered strokes and circled with darker rings, small details that mimic the segmented joints of real bamboo. From afar, you might miss their origin entirely. But up close, you see the subtle imperfections in every stroke, fingerprints, uneven lines, a bit of paint that ran on a humid afternoon. And that's the magic of it. It's real. Made by hands, not machines. In one corner of the garden, hostas sprawl wide under the protection of a dwarf maple, its red leaves fluttering like whispers. Along the moss-lined path, stepping stones lead the way, flanked by the faux bamboo bottles that guide your eye like a soft melody. The border doesn't just frame the space, it softens it, calms it. The bottles form a visual rhythm, gently cradling the beds of ferns and ornamental grasses beyond. And all of it began with trash. Bottles that once held soda, now rooted in soil and transformed through simple craft. You don't need expensive tools or exotic supplies. Just time, a few bottles, some green paint, and a quiet afternoon. So maybe this isn't just a border. Maybe it's a reminder that even things once discarded can still stand tall, still hold beauty, still belong. In a world full of thrown-away things, there's something quietly magical about giving them a second life, especially when that life includes sunlight, soil, and a few zinnias blooming their hearts out. At the edge of this garden, old bottles once destined for the bin now stand like colorful sentinels, transformed into a flowing mosaic of joy. Some are glass, some are painted plastic, but all contribute to the same story. Of hands that chose creativity over waste, and of beauty built one reused item at a time. Each bottle glows in its own shade, ruby red, golden yellow, sky blue, grassy green, marching along the garden border like a rainbow caught mid-dance. Step closer, and you'll see chipped paint and scuffed glass, proof that nothing here is factory perfect, and that's the point. A single green bottle, its edges dulled by time, leans beside a salmon pink one with fading streaks from last summer's sun. Together, they hold the soil that cradles snapdragons and alyssum, little blooms that don't seem to mind their quirky guardians. There's something deeply grounding in this imperfection, something that says, you don't need new to make something beautiful. One edge curves neatly beside a tidy vegetable bed, spinach and squash soaking up the sun, while a stool and a well-used trowel suggest someone just stepped away, perhaps to slice a tomato still warm from the vine. Low-growing white and fuchsia blooms trail softly over the gravel path like a whispered invitation to pause. If you're wondering where to start, look around. Any bottle, any shape, any color. A brush, some paint, a few minutes of intention. Line your garden edge with them. Let them chip, let them fade, let them stand. What matters isn't perfection, it's presence. You'll be surprised what a little line of old bottles can become when placed with care. A border, a bloom frame, a piece of living art, as real and honest as the soil it holds. There's a kind of charm that only comes from the hands of someone who sees beauty in what's been forgotten. In this quiet corner of the garden, old oil bottles, once meant to be discarded, find a new purpose against a sun-washed barn wall. Their once clear glass has been softened with brush strokes of muted sage, cream, and dusty blue, each one unique in its imperfections. Mounted on weathered iron hooks beside faded enamel signs and rusted farm tools, these humble containers have become vessels of life once more. In one moment, you'll catch the way the morning sun slips across them, warm gold brushing over rosemary stems that tumble gently over the edges, their scent rising with the breeze. These aren't store-bought planters. They're quiet gestures of intention. Each bottle tells a small story, of lavender clipped from the yard, thyme sprigs tucked into soil, and the thoughtful way someone tied it all together with leather straps or knotted jute rope. Step closer, and you'll see one bottle labeled with careful calligraphy, lavender, written as though it belonged on the front of a family heirloom. It's nestled in a leather sling, firm yet delicate, secured to a plank of salvaged barnwood. The old red brick behind it is chipped and soft, like time has worn it kindly. The lavender inside is just beginning to bloom. Not loud. Not showy. Just right. This project isn't about crafting perfection, it's about bringing meaning back into everyday things. Maybe you have bottles tucked away in a cupboard. Maybe there's a forgotten shelf in the garage. With a little paint, a touch of twine, and some tender planting, your wall could bloom too. It's not just decor. It's a quiet celebration of second chances, and a gentle reminder that even the simplest objects can carry joy when given a little love. There is something quietly sacred about a garden that whispers rather than shouts. In this peaceful slice of backyard serenity, discarded plastic bottles have been reborn as vessels of calm, each one holding a simple herb like mint or shiso, not just for flavor, but for peace. Painted in muted grays and deep moss greens, the planters blend effortlessly into the soft-toned patio. The white pebbles at their feet serve not only as grounding accents, but as a gentle invitation to pause, breathe, and notice. At the far edge of the space, a bamboo spout releases a slow trickle of water into a stone basin. It is not loud, not flashy, just rhythm, repetition, and silence between each drop. In this stillness, a plastic bottle ceases to be trash. It becomes a frame for growth, a gesture of intention. A small wooden tray nearby holds 3 amber-hued planters, their bodies cut from old plastic and sanded smooth. Nestled into black gravel, they cradle tiny green shoots. Nothing extravagant. Just life beginning. The presence of an old stone lantern nearby gives quiet weight to the scene, like a reminder that beauty doesn't rush. Along the walkway, the bottles take a new form, matte painted in the soft blue of river clay or the faded teal of seaside pottery. Their rounded shapes echo traditional Japanese jars, but their material roots them firmly in the modern day, a bridge between what was and what can be. Behind them, a bamboo fence offers privacy, while overhead, white lanterns sway gently in filtered sun. What makes this garden inspiring isn't the perfection of its symmetry or the elegance of its restraint. It's the message, that even the most unremarkable trash can be transformed into something living, useful, and calm. With a little paint, a handful of stones, and a mindful heart, anyone, truly anyone, can turn their own corner of the world into a space of quiet wonder. There's a quiet kind of magic in the moment you walk beneath an arch, especially when it's something you've built with your own hands. In these images, old bottles take on new life, not as waste, but as welcoming beacons to something soft and personal, a garden shaped by creativity, not budget. In the first scene, a halo of green, amber, cobalt, and clear bottles arcs proudly over a gravel path. They're not polished or pristine, they're real, gently weathered, and lovingly placed along curved iron rods. The sun, as it begins to drop behind the trees, slips through the colored glass like honey, casting tiny rainbows on the leaves. Morning glory vines twirl upward, as if drawn to the light, offering heart-shaped leaves and the occasional violet bloom. It's not a grand entrance. It's something better, a signal that this space is loved, a place where scraps can shimmer and weeds are welcome. Next, we're brought closer. Here, the base of a wooden arch reveals its structure. Recycled bottles, painted with faded pinks, creams, and blues, are fastened with thin metal wire and anchored with water inside for steadiness. Their muted tones echo the nearby marigolds, which lean cheerfully into the pathway. The bottles, upside down, seem almost like wind chimes stilled before a breeze. There's nothing fancy here, and that's exactly the point. It feels like the kind of project you could start this weekend with a handful of bottles, some garden wire, and a quiet afternoon. The third image tells a more intimate story. Nestled between two homes, a tunnel of clear plastic bottles welcomes you into a secret backyard patio. Fairy lights are laced through the arch, twinkling like stars waiting for dusk. Inside, benches sit quietly beside blooming planters and a neat row of stone pavers. There's ivy beginning to climb up one post, whispering that this little sanctuary is alive. It's a small space, not much room, not much fuss, but it feels like a world of its own. These arches aren't just entrances, they're thresholds between everyday and imagination. They remind us that a garden doesn't have to be expensive to be extraordinary, it just has to be yours. So take what you have. Twist some wire. Gather bottles. Light it gently. And create a gateway that makes the ordinary feel just a little more enchanted.